Morning, guys. We're carrying on our series of American Civil War games, and we've swapped our usual game around. So in this game, we're going to have the Union troops defending and being outnumbered by a Confederate force that's moving up to seize this highland. I don't know whether you can see it on the table. Perhaps if we go down to sort of troop height, you can see quite a lot of hills, rocky ground that the Union forces are defending. I think we'll have to call this Howells Hill. So battle for Howells Hill, following our battle for Howells Farm. So following the successful Union assault on Howells Farm last time, we've now got a counterattack by the Confederates. So what we've got here, first part of the Confederate assault force is this Alabama Brigade. I think it's the 44th, 47th, 48th Infantry Regiments and the 15th and 16th Regiments. So 4 regiments of troops here supported by a battery. I think we might rejig the batteries a bit again, make these 4-gun batteries rather than 6-gun batteries as they're currently on the table for the Confederates. So when we actually get the game going, I'll give you a quick update on that. But Alabama Brigade with a supporting artillery battery. Here in the centre, we've got a 4 regiment brigade. These are the Texans. Again, we'll be counting these as veteran troops. More for show than anything else, we've got some Confederate scouts on the table. They'll be able to deploy as dismounted cavalry, effectively as skirmishers in due course, but they're the ones who've been scouting out this Union position and on whose reconnaissance information the Confederates are advancing. And then finally on table, we've got a 3rd attacking Confederate brigade. These are Georgians, and they'll be attacking on the right flank. In addition, in reserve off table, the Confederates have a Louisiana brigade, including the Louisiana Tigers. They may choose to deploy. Again, as last turn, as in the last game, they'll be available on a dice roll. We'll make those available from the beginning of the game as the Confederates are assaulting. For the Union, we've got 3 brigades forming the defensive position. This 1st brigade is of 3 regiments, 2nd brigade of 3 further regiments, and then over on the right flank, defending more outbuildings from Howells Farm, we've got a 4 regiment brigade with a 6-gun artillery battery. All right, let's see how this game plays out, and I hope you enjoy it. Cheers, everyone. All right, let's roll off or start the game by rolling off for staff officers. Let's see what we get. 3 brigades on table for both sides, and we have 2 active staff officers for the Confederates and 2 for the Union troops. All right, we will allocate those. I think we'll put those. Yeah, let's just have a moment's thought, and then I'll come back and also give you an overview of what the rebel assault plan will be. All right, our plan for the rebels is to do an echeloned attack from the right. So we're going to be assaulting primarily with this Georgian brigade on the right. The Texans are going to move forward in support. Both of them are going to go into the hills and try and drive off these Union forces on Howells Hill. They're looking to avoid the artillery fire from the Union battery over there in the distance, and we'll do some counter battery fire and basically use our large Alabama brigade to pin these Confederate forces around the farm and prevent them from redeploying. We're going to potentially use our 3rd Louisiana brigade to reinforce this attack on the right. For the Union, they've allocated both of their ADCs to their artillery battery. They're going defensive at the moment. They're going to put artillery assault on that battery. They will, if they activate, look to move both of their brigades forward so they're not so close to their baseline, and to give them a bit more of an opportunity to pull back. So we're going to be advancing into contact with our Union troops. They try and get up to some of these log fence lines, to make those the basis of their defensive position. All right, let's roll for activation. We'll start with the... Okay, so we'll roll for the Texan Brigade that's in shot here. They go active. The Georgian Brigade to their right have got a re-roll. They need it. They've got a 1. Let's roll a re-roll. Got a 6. They go active as well. And then the Union Confederate Brigade on the far left rolls a 4. So all Confederate brigades are active. For the Union, we've got artillery assault on, but no re-roll on our Union Brigade on the left. They go hesitant. That's not great. Then their brigade in the centre, no re-roll, is also hesitant. And the brigade on the right is active. So we have 1 active Union Brigade. All Confederate brigades are active, so rolling for initiative. The Union do get initiative. That's 7 minus 2. Takes them down to a 5. The Confederates only rolled a 4. So, Union are active. They get to move first. All right, let's kick off the movement. In this first turn of the game, we may see these Union forces pushing forward as we described. All right, you can see there that the Union forces have moved forward on their far right flank. The Union Brigade in the rocky outcrops successfully passed its discipline test, so moved through those rocks, remains formed up. Otherwise, the brigade in the centre hasn't moved, or indeed has the one on the far left. All right, let's move the Confederate forces out. All right, so for the Texans, they've moved forward and echelon slightly to the right, all remaining within supporting distance of one another. For the Alabama, our front 2 regiments have broken into skirmish formation and moved up to the next fence line with a view to pouring some fire into the Union troops opposite them, and their supporting regiment has moved up. On the right again, the Alabama have moved into skirmish line and started moving into the woods to potentially put some fire on the Union positions. We'll now move the Georgians up. Okay, so the Georgians moved up successfully on the right. They passed their discipline tests, moved up to the edge of that small copse. They're concealed by the high ground and by the trees from the Union troops, so they won't be able to exchange fire with one another. The rebel cavalry in the centre has dismounted, so those skirmishers will be able to open up against that Union brigade opposite them. And that's it for movement. All right, let's do some firing for turn 1. Union to go first. All right, let's start with the Union fire behind these fences. We've got these 2 regiments on the left. They're going to be firing at long range. So their modifiers will be, they are firing at targets who are in cover and indeed are skirmishers. So I don't think those are cumulative, so this will be a -2 for that Union shot. I'll just check to see if those modifiers are. Can't immediately see, do let me know if you know the answer to this, whether those modifiers are cumulative. But we're going to keep it as not cumulative modifiers. So given they're firing at skirmishers, this will be a -2 modifier. This will be a long-range volley, as those are formed Union regiments, and they are of regular unit size. So let's see what we roll. First unit gets a 7, and the right-hand unit gets a 7. Both of those goes down to a 5. So at long range, that causes no casualties on the Rebs. All right, and then we'll fire the Union artillery battery. So this is a battery of rifle guns. It's at 42-inch range. It's going to do counter battery fire. So rifled artillery at 42-inch range is long range, and that brigade is unformed. So the artillery battery cannot indeed fire at that range. All right, that is it for Union firing. We'll now do rebel firing. You know, I said I might adjust that rebel battery. I think as we've only got 2 batteries in the game, we're going to keep both of them as 6-gun batteries. So we'll leave it at that. So now the rebel skirmishers will fire. We've got 5 bases from both regiments. So let's just work out that. Okay, so we get 5 dice for both regiments, but We lose combat dice because we're firing at targets in cover. Again, the reds will be the regiment on the right, the blues will be targets on the left. And we need 5 or 6s for casualties. So that's 1 for the regiment on the left and 2 for the regiment on the right. We'll put those casualties on those Union regiments. Next, we'll do the rebel guns. Okay, so the rebel guns will also be firing at long range, and they're going to go and fire. I think if I counter battery fire, those Union guns are in hard cover. So we will check target priorities, but I think we're going to fire at this closest Union line regiment, which is at 25 inch range for 12 pounds. Smooth bores is at effective range. So we'll check priority, and we've rolled A7. Let's see what priorities are, and then look. Okay, so it does say the closest formed enemy unit is the priority. So we will indeed fire at those infantry. At effective range, we've rolled a 7. That is 1.5 casualties for a 6-gun battery. So let's see if the half converts. Well, it's gone behind a tree. We have rolled a 4. So that's 2 more casualties on that Union infantry brigade. Good start for the rebels. Finally, we will fire these rebel skirmishers on the hill. Actually, we will check that because the Union may be able to see those skirmishers. Probably can. So we've probably got 2 shots from those 2 Union regiments. Let's just check those. We are in range. So we do have 2 Union volleys. Again, we'll do the reds as the right-hand volley against the rebel skirmishers in the little copse, and then a left. The blue dice will be the left-hand brigade firing at the rebels just on that hill line, just past those line of logs. Let's see what we do. Right, well, they lose fire discipline. Both of them lose fire discipline, I'm sure, on a 3. So not great for the Union. Right, we will now fire the rebels back. Each 2 figures counts as a base. That's the way I play it. So we've got 3 dice from both sides. Firing at the Union troops who are in the open and no cover, so no modifiers for this. We need 5s or 6s. We don't roll any, so ineffective fire there on the left. All right, that's the end of turn 1. We'll now roll to see if any reserves are available. So we need a 6 for the Union Reserve Brigade to be available, and similarly a 6 for the Louisiana Brigade to be available. Neither side roll a 6, so no reserves available this turn. Let's roll for ADCs. All right, so 2 brigades rolling as before. Same result. Both sides get 2 staff officers. We'll allocate those and do rolls for activation. All right, both sides have gone for the same activations. Both are looking to activate their brigades on the right-hand side of the table, the ones in view in the camera shot you're looking at the moment. The Union, because again, they want to make sure they've put some clear space between them and their baseline, and because for the rebels, they want their attack to go in. Let's see how we do. All right, both Union brigades go active. 1 rebel brigade fails, but these are re-rolls, so I didn't decide which one. Okay, so 1 of the rebel brigades has gone active. 1, 2, 3, it's the Texans. 4, 5, 6, it's the Georgians. It's the Texans who've gone hesitant this turn. The Georgians remain active. And then for the 2 left-hand brigades, no re-rolls for these, and the rebels again have gone hesitant. So the Alabama Brigade will not be able to do anything. The Union Brigade is active. So both the centre and left-hand rebel brigades are hesitant. Let's roll for initiative. The Union get it again. All right, Union to move first. All right, so rebels unfortunately showing their inexperience here on the right, that Georgian Brigade. 4 out of those 5 regiments have gone unformed as they move through those trees, through that rocky terrain and over the log rail fences. So that potential assault is a bit of a mess. They'll have to shake themselves out, try and form up, and they will also be susceptible to some Union fire from those Union formed troops that are opposing them. Otherwise, no other rebel forces have moved this turn, given their hesitant status. And for the Union Brigade on the right, as you see it here, pulled back one of its leading regiments so that it had the availability of support to its rear, and formed a nice strong line with its its fellow regiments in that brigade. And in the centre, the centre brigade has moved up to try and form a solid line, including with its supports. So that's it for movement. We'll jump straight into firing. Union to go first. We'll start with these regiments on the right as we get the first exchange of fire with this potential rebel assault. Okay, so it's 8-inch range, which for rifled muskets is effective range. So this is be the far right-hand Union regiment opening fire. The left-hand Union regiment can't quite see the rebels. They're just behind the crest of that hill. So they will be shielded this turn. So let's go with that rebel regiment on the right. What do they roll? And we roll a 3. They lose fire discipline as well. No effect on the rebels forming up to their front. All right, and then they're 2. And in fact, there should have been a -2 modifier on that because that rebel regiment moved. Yeah, if you move, there's a -2 modifier. All right, so the 2 Union regiments in the centre will fire at the cavalry skirmishers of the Rebs in the woods and just over that log line. Both of these will be at -4. So that's a 3 and a 4 at close, a standard volley at effective range, even with a 4. Again, all Union regiments that open fire have lost fire discipline. Then finally, the Union artillery battery will open fire. It's got to go at its closest formed enemy unit. They are going to fire at the rebel guns. I think they feel like the most appropriate target. The range is 44 inches, and for rifled artillery, that is a long-range shot. Let's fire that Union battery. What do we get? We get a 7 at long range. It's 1 casualty on the rebel artillery battery down here in the centre from the Union battery facing off against them. Okay, and then finally the Union infantry on the far left by the farm, those 2 regiments over there. They broke into skirmish formation because they took such heavy casualties from the rebel skirmishers this turn. So they'll be firing back at skirmishers. Both have 5 bases, both lose 1 dice because they're firing at skirmishers. They need 5 or 6s. The right-hand regiment of the Union causes 2 casualties on the rebels, and that will be it for Union firing now for return fire from the Rebs. All right, so the Red regiments will be firing exactly the same back at the Unions. They need to have 5 or 6s. Same deal, red dice for the right-hand regiment. Right-hand regiment causes no casualties, but the left-hand regiment causes 3 casualties on that Union regiment. Rebs definitely doing the better here in terms of this exchange of fire on the far left. All right, so the Reb guns on the left are going to open fire. They're going to fire at the formed up Union regiment that's in the farm. So this will be at -1. They roll 6. That goes down to a 7. This is at long range. That's a 7 going down to a 6 rather. That's half a casualty on that Union regiment. These are all the Irish brigade, by the way, over here on the left. So they're all veterans. And we roll a 1, so that does not convert into any casualties. So that's rebel firing on the left complete. We'll now do their firing on the right. We don't want to lose fire discipline for the rebels on the right, so they're advancing infantry regiments, given that they're both unformed and moving and firing at least some targets in cover. They're going to hold their fire. But the Red skirmishers will open up. 3 dice. Again, Reds are on the right-hand regiment. 2 casualties on the left-hand regiment for the Union, but that's it. So that's the end of turn 2, and we're getting somewhere. Okay, so first let's roll for reinforcements. 5s or 6s are needed this time. The Union get their reserve brigade with a 6. All right, they get the option to bring that on after from this turn, from next turn onwards. All right, let's roll for ADCs. 3 for the Rebs, only 1 for the Union. Let's roll and activate them. Okay, so the Rebs really do want initiative this turn, so we're going to put re-rolls on all of our brigades. Georgians hesitate, but on their re-roll go active. Texans go active, and our Alabama brigade goes active. So all rebel units active for the Union. We've only got 1 staff officer. I think we will put a re-roll on our artillery because we don't want them to go hesitant. So this will be on the Irish Brigade. And they need the re-roll, and they are active. Middle Brigade is hesitant, right-hand brigade is active. So we have one hesitant Union Brigade, which is the one in the centre, and we will get a +1 modifier for initiative. And that's a draw. The Unions had initiative last turn, so the Union keep initiative this turn. All right, turn 3. Let's see who moves where. Okay, so we've seen a pretty dramatic choice by the Union General here with their reserves now available. And having clocked that all those rebel forces have been disordered moving through all of that difficult terrain, the rebel brigade on the right has charged the Union brigade on the right has charged into those rebel lines. So, and the rebel defensive volleys will now take place. The Union troops moving through the rocks on the left passed their discipline test and did not go unformed. So both Union regiments are formed, and I have already rolled for the right-hand regiment as it enters the trees. If it gets through the volley, they also pass that test. So all those rebel units will be charged by formed Union troops. All right, let's do the rebel defensive volleys. We'll go and check the size of those regiments. I think one of them might be a large regiment, and see how they do. Indeed, the right-hand rebel regiment is regular size, but the left-hand rebel regiment is large. So infantry fire modifiers means you will get 2 extra combat dice if you're firing as a large regiment, but they are unformed, so they're rolling at -2. The rebels have taken no casualties. Their targets at the 3-inch point are not in cover. So the red dice will be the volley and the blue dice are the casualty dice. They're all a 7 at -2, that goes down to a 5. So that is 1 casualty, but 2 more from the casualty dice. So that's 3 casualties on the left-hand charging Union regiment. We'll now do the right-hand regiment, no casualty dice on this one. They roll a 4, that goes down to a 2, that loses 5 discipline, so the right-hand rebel regiment causes no casualties. All right, let's do the charge results as these 2 Union regiments try and charge in against them. All right, so we'll do the left-hand regiment first. So this is the Union regiment charging into the large unit of Georgian regulars. It'll be a -2 for the Georgians as they're unformed, and -1 to the Union as they took those 3 casualties coming in. So a net +1 modifier, that's 8 versus 8. So that is a draw. They close to melee. All right, now let's do the left-hand one. This will be a +2 modifier to the Union as simply the Rebs are unformed. Again, that is a +1. So on a +1, they will halt and volley. So they roll 5 dice. Let's see if we cause any casualties. So on a 4, 5 or 6, that will be a casualty on that Reb regiment. So that's 2 casualties on the Reb, and those 2 regiments are in a firefight. The Unions did actually have a re-roll on that one, but on a +1 result. I think they got an 8, didn't they? That feels a bit dodgy to re-roll with just 1 re-roll dice, so they'll allow that charge to stand. All right, that's it for charges. The Union regiment in the centre were hesitant. They can't move forward. They'll stay where they are, and on the left in the farm, they will stay in position. All right, charges out the way. We'll do normal movement for the Rebs. Okay, so starting on this left-hand flank, the Reb skirmishers remain in place on the far left. Exchanging fire with their Union counterparts. In this little copse here, the 2 rebel regiments have moved forward. The skirmishers are now lining the edge of the copse, and the formed regiment has moved up in support as we swing to the right. The rebel Texan Brigade, the veteran Texan Brigade, is now moving up to the rough land in the centre of the Union position. All right, firing now will start with Union troops. Firstly, volleys against the rebel skirmishers from the formed Union brigades in the centre. Now looking at those, red dice will be the right-hand regiment, blue dice will be the left-hand regiment, -2 for firing at skirmishers. So the right-hand regiment gets a 9, that goes down to a 7, and that's a standard volley. That's pretty good. That's 2 casualties against the right-hand skirmisher unit. I just knocked that over. That's a 7. I think it was a 7. That goes down to a 5, so that'll be 1 casualty against the left-hand unit. So some casualties against those rebel skirmishers in the centre. On the left, we'll do the Union skirmishers going against the red skirmishers. Needing 5 or 6s, no casualties there. And then finally, the Union gun battery will open fire, and it's going to fire counter-battery fire against the rebel battery at long range. It rolls a 7. That goes down to, I don't know, it goes down to anything actually. Artillery fire, modifiers. In cover, deployed battery -2. So 7 goes down to a 5 at long range. We'll check that's long range, but I think it is. That's half a casualty against the rebel battery, and that does not convert. That is all the Union firing. We'll now do some Confederate return fire. All right, firing the Confederate skirmishers, saying 4 dice each against those Union troops. Again, much better firing from the Confederates. They do 2 casualties against the right-hand Union regiment and 1 casualty against the left-hand one. And I do need to remember to modify the Union fire for the casualties they've taken. And we'll now fire the rebel battery against the same infantry target at long range in cover. A 9 goes down to an 8. Long range 8 is 1 casualty. All right, let's put those casualties on. All right, so the remaining firing will be the rebel skirmishers on the hill. 6 shots, 3 from each, firing at those rebel regiments, Union regiments opposing them. 5s or 6s needed. Wow, that's good on the right-hand regiment. That is 2 6s and a 5. That is a casualty on them, and I think a double 6 in this game may well be a see the elephant test. Even if it is, the Union troops have passed that test. All right, that's it for turn 3. That's the firing done. We've just got this melee on the far right to work through. I need to remember that the melee rules are slightly different to this than the first version of General D'Armée. So you roll casualty dice for each base. So that rebel regiment, even though it's unformed, pardon me, starts at 7 dice. So it loses 1 for being unformed, goes down to 6. The attacking rebel Union regiment only has 5 bases, needing 4s, 5s or 6s. So the Union caused 2 casualties. The rebels caused 2 casualties. So that is a draw. All right, so on a drawn result, which that was, both take 2 casualties and both units retire. So the Confederates fell back through their supporting infantry regiment. They did disorder that regiment, but they still had a formed unit behind that one. So they fell back behind them and halted. And similarly for the Union, they were able to fall back directly 6 inches, didn't disorder anybody, and then were able to pull back behind one of their formed units. So they also retired, took 2 casualties, and halted their withdrawal behind their own formed units. All right, that's it for turn 3. Let's see where we are as we roll for staff officers and indeed reserves in turn 4. So as we look at turn 4, the Union are now able to bring on their reserve regiment, so they have the option of bringing that on if they need to. They get to choose. It's sitting off table in reserve. Let's see if the rebels will get their reserve regiment. They need a 4, 5 or 6 this turn. Whoa, that was a 1, and it just flipped over to a 4. So the rebels also have a reserve regiment available. That's the Louisiana Tigers. And their fellow Louisiana regiments, so another good brigade for the rebels, and that will be available not this turn but the turn thereafter. All right, let's roll for activations. So Union now have 4 regiments available. We'll roll for those. The Union only get 1 staff officer. The rebels get 2. All right, we'll activate those and then we'll probably take a break. Okay, so the rebels are going to put re-rolls on the Texans and the Georgians. So let's roll the Georgians first. That's a 6, and then the Texans is a 4. They both go active, and then let's roll For the Alabama, they are also active. All rebel regiments are active. For the Union, we're going to put a re-roll on our right-hand brigade because we don't want them to go hesitant. We want to reform that unit. That makes sense. They pass, then the centre brigade, no re-roll, is hesitant again, and then the left-hand brigade is active. So we have 1 hesitant Union brigade, 2, but no modifiers for the Rebs. So this will be a -1 modifier for the Union. They roll an 8, the Union roll a 9. They had initiative last turn, yet again they keep it. Union doing well on this initiative. That's it for the start of turn 4. We'll just mark on the hesitant brigade, so I don't forget, and then we'll resume with movement. All right, so a quarter turn in turn 4. The Rebs on the right have reformed all of their units in the Georgian Brigade. 3 of them were still unformed, so their most advanced regiment will be engaged in a firefight with the Union regiment there on the far right that charged up last turn and halted and volleyed. The Union counterparts have also formed up and stepped back, made sure they're behind the crest of the hill, so the more left hand of the Union regiments in that right hand brigade is hidden from the rebels by the crest of the hill. As we see in the centre, the Texas Brigade has continued its advance forward. The opposing Union troops were unable to advance as they are hesitant, but you can see the Union reserve, 4 more infantry regiments, has arrived on table either side of that little copse, hedging our bets a bit as to whether it goes right or left, but it certainly thinks this position in the high ground needs reinforcing. Over on the left, no movement from either side. So Union have initiative. Let's start with some Union firing for turn 4. I should have done this a couple of turns before, but the Union skirmishers are opening fire, but they've both taken more than 4 casualties, so they both lose another dice. 1 for firing at skirmishers, 1 for firing at a reduced capability. All right, that's 1 casualty each on the 2 opposing Reb regiments. Might as well do the skirmish fire at the same time because I've got the right number of dice. 4 dice back from the Rebs. Again, better firing by the Rebs. 5s or 6s needed, so that's 3 casualties on the Union troops, 2 on the right-hand regiment, 1 on the left-hand regiment. All right, those Union troops feeling pretty shook up there. That's both of those now over 6 casualties. The one on the right has got 7, the one on the left has got 6. The rebels have got 3 and 1. So the Union position, certainly the outer defences of that element of Howells Farm, not looking so good. Right, let's fire the Union artillery battery. Just a normal shot. It's again going for counter battery fire. There's a bit of -2 and at long range. Wow, they roll a 12. That's good. So that's a 10. So even at long range, that's pretty good. That's 2 casualties on the rebel battery. It takes it up to 3. It's not a see the elephant test, but it will be a serendipity test. Let's see what the Union get on that. They roll a 6 on the serendipity test. So the gun battery has to immediately retire. All right, we'll retire them to the table edge as their commander has been killed. Not good news for the rebels, and that will disrupt their efforts on this side of the field a bit. Good firing by the Union, and no return fire from the rebels this turn from their artillery. All right, looking at the right, we've got our 2 hesitant Union regiments that have been firing at those skirmishers repeatedly for the last few turns. They'll be at -2 for their volleys. That's a 7 and a 6. That's not too bad. So a standard volley of a 6 is 1 casualty and a 7 is 2. So I think that means both of those rebel skirmishers units lose a stand. All right, so the Reb skirmishers will fire back, needing 5s or 6s. Okay, that's 1-6 against the left-hand Union regiment. All right, we'll need to pull those Reb skirmishers out soon, as if they suffer 3 more casualties, they'll break. And we don't want to cause a falter test. All right, over on the right-hand side, we've got an exchange of fire between these 2 regiments on the far right. Both units are formed, but the Confederates are in the wood line, so the Union shot will be at -1. Let's do the Union shot first. Let's see how they do. They roll an 8, that'll go down to a 7. This is at standard volley. That's 2 casualties against the Rebs. The Rebs will fire back. They roll a 5, no modifiers. That is 1 casualty back against the Union troops. Not too disastrous for either side. That musketry duel continues. All right, let's do a bit of overview. Where are we on turn 4? So the Alabama Brigade on the left has just suffered the indignity of losing its artillery battery commander, which caused the battery to retire to the table edge. They will have to deploy forward again and again miss another turn of firing. So that is reducing the effectiveness of this rebel pressure on the Union left-hand side. However, the rebel skirmishers have been doing well. They've taken pretty few casualties in these 2 Alabama regiments, but the Union troops opposing them have taken pretty withering fire from the rebels. So pressure continues here, and I think that, again, the Union can't really afford to redeploy anything. These 2 rebel regiments on the right-hand side of the Alabama Brigade are really just holding these copse of woods and connecting the left-hand and right-hand side of the rebel line. Over here on the right, the main rebel assault is really coming in now. The Texan Brigade has moved up in support, but it now faces 2 waves of Union forces as the Union reserves have arrived, and the rebel skirmishers haven't done too much damage to those rebel regiments that are opposing the Texans. On the right, again, the rebels may be on the point of starting their assault over here again. All their regiments are now formed up at the end of turn 4. And the rebels do have the opportunity in turn 5 to bring the Louisiana Brigade on. They'll have to make some choices about where to deploy that. All right, back for turn 5. Okay, so here we are on turn 5. Time to roll for ADCs. So both sides now have 4 brigades available. Louisiana Brigade is still off table. The Rebs roll all 4 of their ADCs. Union only roll 2, so 2 staff officers for the Union. I think we'll put 1 on our reserve brigade and 1 on our artillery brigade. So hopefully that one stays active. All right, let's roll. So for the starting off on the Union left, we'll roll for our artillery. Needs the reroll. They are active. Our reserve brigade is active. Our right-hand brigade on the front line on the right is hesitant, and our left-hand brigade is active. So we have 3 active Union brigades, but the far right-hand brigade over here is hesitant. All right, for the Rebs with 4, we're definitely going to put a reroll to try and bring our artillery forward again. We'll put re-rolls on our 2 attacking brigades on the right. Yeah, I think that's it, actually. Can't see use for that 4th one, which is quite unusual, but I don't want to do a forwards order. I haven't got any artillery to do artillery assault. Yeah, so I think we'll leave it at that. Our right-hand brigade is active. Our centre Texan brigade with its re-roll is active. And then our left-hand brigade with its re-roll, pardon me, remains hesitant. So the rebel artillery stays out of the fight. Okay, so both sides have got 1 hesitant brigade. See what we roll. We roll a 7 for the Union, a 6 for the Rebs. The Union again, this must be for about the 4th turn in a row, retain initiative. All right, Union to move and indeed charge. All right, so, pardon me, been eating some cashew nuts, clearly gone the wrong way. Let's have a look over here. So the Union didn't charge, remained in their positions, but the Rebs have charged this turn. So the brigade of Georgian troops, the right-hand 2 regiments are charging out of the woods into that Union regiment deployed in front of them. And then these 3 regiments on the left have also advanced forward and charged. Both the Rebs will get supports. The Unions won't get any supports because they haven't had a chance to move and use the unit that was thrown back previously to come back into line. I think that's it for charges. Everything else looks like it's out of range. So we'll now do these charge results. Okay, so for the Union troops on the right, at the 3-inch point, the Rebs are still in the woods. So there'll be a -1 to this roll. They roll a 5, that will go down to a 4. They lose fire discipline and have no effect. All right, the Union regiment on the left of this attack. Another terrible bit of firing. They only roll a 5. At close range, that will be 1 casualty on the attacking Reb unit. Not enough to impact the charge results. All right, let's go on and see how the charges do. Okay, starting on the far right, we've got the 86th New York facing off against the 7th Georgia. 7th Georgia have taken 4 casualties, so that'll be a -1 modifier for them. So let's see the modifiers. They're not elite, they're not veteran, they're not pursuing or unformed, they're not charging the flank or rear. So that will be a simple -1 for the 7th Georgia. For the New York, they're not unformed, they're not flanked or whipped, not tackled out. So this will be a straight +1 for the... Right, let's see how we do. There will be a reroll available for the Rebs, but not for the Union. Plus a +1 net modifier to the Union. Wow, impressive results. We've got a double 6 and against an 11. So that actually is a 12 against 12. So that is a draw. So they will close to melee, and there will be a serendipity test for the Rebels. They roll a 6, we've had that before, so if in charge combat the opposing colonel is caught out by the fury of charge and flees, the unit loses 1 reroll. If the enemy has no supports, that's ignored. So okay, unfortunately for the Rebs, that will have no beneficial effect, but they have charged home, we will have a melee there. All right, now let's do the second assault. Okay, in the second assault, the Rebs have a reroll, that's it, otherwise there are no net modifiers. Rebs roll a 3, that's terrible. With their reroll, that goes up to a 5 against an 8, so the Rebs are at -3 on that charge, even with their reroll. At a -3 on a charge result, they and their supports will retire, and the Union troops on the left there will hold their position. Right, so that melee combat on the far right, that'll take place at the end of the turn. Let's get on with the normal movement. It's Union to go first. Right, so in the centre, both brigades have chosen to move forward. The Unions move first and move up to that fence line, and then the Texan brigade has moved up to get into a firefight with them. So no charging, but just moving into close range volleys. Otherwise, no further movement on the left-hand side, as this was... hesitant brigade for the Rebels, so they haven't been able to reconstitute their gun battery. All right, Unions to start first. Let's start over here with our skirmisher fire that's been going on for a number of turns. So it'll be 3 dice. I can remember this, 3 dice for the Union, 2 regiments. Reds again will be the right-hand regiment. They score 1 casualty on the left-hand Rebel regiment. That takes them up to 2. They're on 2 and 3, so they will fire back with 4 dice each against their Rebel, against their Union opposition. We'll do this at the same time, as there's no other firing for these regiments. And the right-hand regiment causes simply 1 casualty on the Union troops. So not as effective as the previous turn for the Rebels. All right, on with the rest of the firing. Okay, so the Union guns are going to open fire, and they're going to go against this Rebel regiment down here. It's the only formed unit they can actually see. That is at long range, and they're in cover as well, so this will be at -1. That's a 6 at long range. That is 1 casualty against this Alabama unit that is in reserve. Okay, next move. We'll now do the firing in the centre. We've got 2 Union regiments. They both moved. Again, the red dice will be the right-hand regiment. These will be at -2 because they moved up to that fence line. So we get 4 on the right-hand regiment, that won't do anything, but the 9 goes down to a 7. That'll be a standard volley. 7 causes 2 casualties on that Texan regiment facing them. Then finally, over across on the right, I don't think there's any firing to do, as that Union unit on the hill, which is next to the melee, is behind the crest of the hill, so can't actually fire. And indeed, it did fire, didn't it, in the charge phase. So we'll now do the return fire from the rebels. So we'll start with the large Texan regiment on the right. They get 2 combat dice. So they roll a 6. That will go down to a loss of fire discipline, but they do cause 1 casualty with their combat dice. And then on the left-hand regiment, this again will be at -3. They roll a 7. That will go down to a 4. So both both rebel regiments lose fire discipline, but they simply cause 1 casualty on the Union. Both those brigades rushing into close range, firing. Hopefully the volley exchanges will settle down in a bit. Then finally, we've got 3 stands of rebel skirmishers firing into the Union. They actually do cause 2 more casualties. All right, 3 casualties then on the Union troops, and that'll be the end of firing in this turn. And we'll finish with the close combat on the right. All right, so on the right-hand side, both sides start with 5 dice. The rebels gain a dice because of their rebels in hand-to-hand combat, and that's the benefit they get on the end of their charge. But they then lose a dice because they've already taken 4 casualties. So it will be 5 against 5. We need more cause. So the rebels do well. They cause 4 casualties. The Union only cause 2. We'll mark those casualties up, and that's a melee result at +2. So on a +2, we'll just check. Okay, it's quite straightforward. The Union troops are whipped, so they retreat, and the rebels take the ground. Right, that brings turn 5 to an end. We're going to move on to turn 6. Rebels are still holding off, calling on their reserve regiment. And they're doing pretty well at the moment, and see whether they can pull this victory off with only a late use of those reserves. All right, let's move on for activations for both sides. How many staff officers are available? Rebels get all. Rebels only get 2. Union get all 4. Let's see where we're going to allocate those and see the results. Okay, so the Union are going to respond to this damage to their left-hand brigade. So they're going to put a forwards order on their brigade in reserve and a reroll on the brigade that has just been attacked, and we'll see how the others do. Okay, so the reroll on the brigade that's just been attacked is needed because they've rolled a 1. They stay hesitant. That's not good. So that retreating unit stays in retreat. The reserves come on and they have a forwards order. The unit in the far fight with the Texans is active, and the unit on the left is hesitant. So 2 hesitant Union brigades, the far right and the far left. For the Rebs, we're going to activate the Texans and the Georgians. Let's see what we do. So Georgians are active. Texans do need their reroll. They are also active, and then without a reroll, our Alabama are active. All right, so Rebs have got an advantage. Can they get the initiative this turn? +2 on their die roll. They roll a 3, that goes up to a 5. The Union roll a 9. The Union retain the initiative. All right, let's see if they're going to do any charges, and otherwise we'll be on to Rebel charges. All right, the charging this turn has switched, so the Rebels who were attacking with the Georgian Brigade, all of those units have reformed up this turn, and supports have moved up on the right. And on the left, the Texan Brigade has charged in. They want to drive home their advantage while they can. Okay, so we got some defensive volleys by those 2 Union regiments. Let's do their defensive fire. So this will be at close range. There is no cover, so these will be straight rolls. The red dice will be the right-hand regiment, the blue, the left. So the left-hand regiment does well. It does an 11. That is 4 casualties and a see the elephant test on that left-hand Texan regiment. Let's do their see the elephant test. They roll a 6, so they will go they are veterans, but that is 4 casualties. So they'll be at -1, which means that I think they need a 7 to pass that initiative test. Elites and veterans need a 6+, but they have taken 4 casualties on a large regiment, so they are at -1. So they will need a 5, but they rolled. They needed a 7, but they've rolled a 6. So yes, the left-hand rebel unit goes unformed and has taken 4 casualties. Okay, on the right, the Union troops have taken 4 casualties, so this will be a -1 to their modifier. The Rebs have a re-roll, the Union don't. The Rebs roll a 9, the Union roll a 7. So on a +2, they halt and volley. We are going to have a go at re-rolling that 3. Come on boys. It's a 2. It's an 8 against a 7, pretty much the same. So they halt and volley. They're a regular regiment, so they do 5 dice of casualties onto the Union troops. They cause 2 more casualties on the Union and are in a musketry exchange. Okay, so we suffered a lot of casualties in the left-hand brigade, and we're unformed, so this will be a -5 on the Rebs roll. Yeah, not great. They will re-roll the 1. They roll a 6, that goes down to a 1. They lost by 6 on the left. They are whipped and their supports retire. So the left-hand element of the rebel assault has faltered. Not literally, but has staggered and will pull back. All right, so the 4th Texas falls back. It's taken 5 casualties from that assault, 4 from the volley and 1 for being whipped. And then the 3rd Arkansas, who were supporting them, also take a casualty on falling back, being supports. So the rebel attack here on the left centre has stuttered. All right, that's it for charges. We'll now do normal movement. Okay, we'll start on the right. So we've got a musketry exchange with the Union opening fire first on the far right for the unit that stood in support of the unit that was broken in the rebel charge last turn. So far right regiment over in the Union side, opening fire against the rebel brigade advancing towards them. We roll an 8 on the volley fire. That's 2 casualties and a see the elephant test on the Rebs. They roll a 9, they're fine. I think that was on 1 casualty, not 2. I just knocked it over. But that is 2 casualties on that rebel. In the centre, there's no firing because of all of the charges that took place earlier in the turn. But we do have those 3 stands of rebel skirmishers on the flank of the Union. Let's see what they do. Reroll a 6, a 3, and a 4. So that's 1 more casualty on that lead Union regiment. And as we pivot over here on the left, see the rebels have again been active. They moved forward their regiment that was sitting in the edge of the woods to increase the amount of skirmisher fire against Union troops. The Unions moved first, so they didn't have a chance to react to this. So it'll be Union firing first, but there'll be quite significant pressure from those Reb skirmishers here on the left. Let's do the Union firing. The right-hand regiment will only get 2 dice now, given the number of casualties it's taken, and the left-hand regiment still gets 3. Right, the left-hand regiment does well. There's 2 more casualties on the Union troops facing them. The Reb troops facing them. They take that left-hand regiment up to 4, so it will drop to 3 casualties now. 3 shooting dice now. So let's fire the rebels. We'll do the 2 regiments that have been firing all along. Again, needing 5s or 6s. Not great firing. 1 more casualty by the left-hand regiment. And then we've got our new regiment that's moved forward. That will also have 4 dice going against that right-hand Union brigade. It does 1 casualty as well. So a lot of firing, but to no great effect. 1 casualty on each of those Union regiments. And I think they're going to have to pull back now. Final bit of firing. Shouldn't have done it out of turn, but we got a long-range shot again by the Union artillery. Let's see what they can do. Going against the same Arkansas regiment, Alabama Regiment in reserve. They roll an 8 at long range. That's one more casualty against this Alabama Regiment at the rear. All right, that's it for turn 6. Let's see what happens as we do turn 7. Let's roll for staff officers for both sides. Rebels do a bit better this time. Rebels have 3 staff officers, Union only have 2. They're going to deploy 1 on their right-hand brigade, which is hesitant and has a retreating unit in it still. And then we'll do 1 on the left-hand brigade as well. Right, so the right-hand brigade needs its reroll. It's gone active this time. It will be able to reform its rearmost unit. The left-hand brigade is active as well. The reserves who have moved up are active, and the far left-hand element of the Union line stays hesitant. All right, then for the Rebs, we've got 3 dice. We're going to put 1 on the Georgians on the right, 1 on the Texans, and we're going to put 1 on the Alabama. So Georgians first. They need their reroll. They're active. The Texans are active, and then the Alabama need their reroll. They go hesitant. That's not great. All right. Let's roll for initiative. So both sides have 1 hesitant brigade. Both of our brigades on the left. And again, the Union troops hold the initiative. They really are swinging it in this game in terms of the initiative, but they're not doing very much with it. All right. Let's start over here. Any charges for this? Of course, I didn't roll the charges on camera, and I have rolled a double 6. So the Union troops decided not to charge. The Georgians then charged again with their supports. The small Georgian regiment on the far right, that was only 3 bases strong, charged through the damaged unit to its front. It passed its leadership test. It needed a 7 or more. It got a 7, and then and in fact it rolled. I haven't rolled for the charge, have I? I didn't roll a 7, I rolled a double 6. That was simply, I was thinking that double 6 was for the charge test. Of course, it's not for the charge test, it's a discipline test for passage of lines. So they get nothing for that double 6 other than a successful passage of lines. So they're charging on that flank. To the left of them, the Texans are charging again against the Union troops they were engaging last turn with the right-hand element of their brigade. All right, let's see what happens as we have some defensive volleys from the Union against this next wave of rebel charge. Okay, so the right-hand rebel regiment has 4 casualties, so this will be at -1. They roll a 4, that's down to a 3. They have lost fire discipline and caused no casualties on the Georgians as they charge in. All right, let's do the second charge. The 2nd Union Regiment has taken no casualties, so this will be a straight volley from them. They roll a 10. I think they did really well, pretty well last time. So on a 10, they cause 4 casualties and a see the elephant test on that charging Georgian regiment. They do have supports right up behind them. The slope's just too steep to put them there. So let's do their see the elephant test. They roll a 9, so they pass their see the elephant test. They don't go unformed, but they have taken 4 casualties. All right. Let's do those 2 charge results before we move on to the text. Starting with the far right-hand side, we got a charge there by the Rebs. No modifiers, they're not unformed, they didn't suffer any casualties charging in. The defenders have no supports, or they do have a support behind them, but the support behind them is unformed. So they get a reroll, but it'll be a reroll at -1. The Rebs will just get a straight reroll for their supports. So the Rebs roll a 7, the Union roll a 5. The Union will try and do their reroll from their support. Wow, that goes down to a 3. So the Rebs have actually won by 4. So on a result of 4+, they can press on or take the ground, and the Rebs and their supports, the Union and their supports are whipped, and the supports retire. So the lead infantry unit and supports may advance 2d6, but may not declare a second charge, which they won't. So they will advance 10. All right, successful charge by our right-hand element. As you can see over here, the Rebs Pushing forward now, they've done that extra advance. They're really in the flank of that Union position now, and the brigade that's facing them, one of those units is retiring, the other one with their backs to you is retreating. We'll now do the charge here. Unfortunately for the Rebs, they do have a support, and the Union don't, but the Rebs will be on -3 because they suffered 4 casualties that turn. That's a -1 and a -2 for each of the every 2 casualties suffered from the defensive fire. So -2 for the shooting, -1 for the cumulative 4 casualties. Right, let's see how this one goes. Well, that's pretty good. Let's show the dice roll. It's a 10. So the Rebs aren't going to re-roll. They have already won by 4. That goes down to a win by 1, but they have still won. So they halt and they do another volley. This is 6 dice again. Let's see what they can do to the rebel unit, to the Union unit that's facing them. Better this time. 3 more casualties on the Union, and the Texans on that flank are definitely winning that firefight. That's charges done. We'll now do normal movement. I'll come back with a recap. All right, let's have a look at the movement. So, as predicted, the fence line here has been ceded to the rebels, and the rebel skirmishers have moved up, moving second, up against that fence line, and the 2 Union skirmishing regiments have been pulled back behind their formed unit in the farm. They'll try and reform next turn. They've taken a lot of casualties. The right-hand rebel skirmishing regiment is also moving up to threaten the Union guns. They also have a formed unit on both flanks to fall back behind if they need to. In the centre, the Texas Brigade have formed up again from their failed charge with their left-hand element of the brigade. Otherwise, we will just be doing firefights. In the centre, the Union Reserve has had to pivot part of the brigade to back to its left, given it's now potentially being threatened by being outflanked by the Georgians over here. All right, now we'll move on with. Let's start on the left. So we've got a Union line regiment firing out against those rebel skirmishers. So this will be a -2 to this dice roll at long range, and we roll a 7. So that's a 5 at long range. I don't imagine that will do anything. It doesn't indeed do anything. Then we've got 4 Union skirmisher bases firing at rebel skirmishers. That'll take it down to 3 dice. And they cause 1 casualty on those rebel skirmishers. Right, and then the Union guns, I think they're going to have to fire. I think they're going, don't know what to fire at. Got to fire at the closest formed unit, I think. So they have to fire against these guys in the woods. That's at 36. These are rifled artillery, but that is beyond effective range. So this will be a long range shot at -1 because the Rebs are in the woods. That's a 4. That long range will be no casualties. All right, then everything on the right was involved in charges, apart from those 2 Union regiments on the crest of the hill opposite the right-hand element of the Texan Brigade. They're going to do, or can they do a volley? They can do a volley because the Rebs stopped short and fired musketry at their colleagues. So they'll fire a close-range volley against the Rebs to their front. They roll a 9. That's pretty good. So that's some decent firing. That's 3 casualties against the Texans and the See the Elephant test. They are veterans. They roll a 7. They will be fine. But that is 3 casualties. Now for some rebel firing. Start with the rebels over here. First thing will be their skirmishers. Still got 3 bases firing at those Union troops. They roll a 6. 1 more casualty against the Union guys on the hill who have just fired. All right, and then let's do the skirmishers over here on the right. Jot the dice down so I can remember that's 1 casualty. Okay, our 5 bases in the open against the Union guns if they're in range. It's, I think, a 12-inch range. What's the range for muskets? It's actually an 18-inch for... Keep forgetting, you've got to be within 12 inches. So these guys are at long range against the guns. They're going to fight against the guns, but they will need 6s. Try and do it right going forward. They cause 1 casualty against the guns. And then we have the skirmishers going against the Union regiment in line against them. The Reds will be the unit on the right, the Blues the ones on the left. The unit on the left has taken 4 casualties, so it will only get 3 dice. The one on the right has only taken 3 casualties, so it will be 4 dice. They will need, they are over 9 inches, so they will need 6s. Perhaps all of our musketry over here has been a bit over effective, but as we had equal levels of skirmishers on both sides, I think we will just let it lie. That's 1 casualty on the Union regiment behind the fence line. Right, that's firing for turn 7. Let's do. I think we may well need those Louisiana regiments now. Our rebel regiments, although they're doing well on the right, are starting to pile up the casualties, although as are their Union opponents. But with the new Union reserves in place, this could be tough for the Rebs to keep this assault on the right going. All right, let's see what we do for ADCs. 4 dice for both, with the option of the Louisiana coming on. Well, the Union rolls 2 and the Rebs only have 1 staff officer. Well, the Rebs are going to keep going with the Georgia regiment, I think. Going with Georgia? Yeah, they're going to keep going with Georgia. Let's activate them. They're active. The Texans, fingers crossed. No! The Texans go hesitant. That's not good news. And then the Alabama are active. All right, and then for the Union, let's do the retreating brigade. We'll put a re-roll on them. They pass. Our reserves brigade, we will put a re-roll on them as well because we want them to charge. They've passed. Then our brigade in the centre right has gone hesitant, and the brigade in the centre left has also gone hesitant. So, +1 modifier for the rebels. And again, the Union have it. They rolled and beat them by 1. That takes it down to a draw. But the rebels, the Union do go first, and I think we might have a Union charge into the flank of that rebel brigade on the left. This could be tough news. This could be a tough turn for the Rebs. So over in the distance there, you can see the reserve Union brigade has charged into the flank of the Georgians. The Georgians were hoping for initiative, then they could have driven the Union troops in front of them off the table. And also, perhaps we should have done it last turn, but the Union have also charged, unfortunately not into the flank, into the front of the Texan brigade they're facing off. And let's see how that charge does. We'll start over here on the right as the flank is hit of the Georgian. No defensive fire as they've been charged in the flank. All right. Let's see if there's any charge reactions to turn and face. I don't. Okay, so the first thing the Confederates have to do is do a see the elephant test, see if they can wheel to face that charge in the flank. They roll a 6. That means they failed. They've gone unformed, so they will be hit in the flank, and they can't wheel to turn and face. It's not all right. There's no firing over there on the right flank. Let's do the charge results. So the charges are regulars. But they're charging the flank or the rear, so they get a +2. They have suffered no casualties. The rebel troops are they're not unformed, they're not hesitant, they are flanked, so they're -2. There's a net. Is that a net +4? You've got to be threatened in the flank. I don't know that they are threatened in the flank because they've been charged in that flank and there's not another flanking threat. So I think there's only a 1 single -2 modifier here. So -2 on the Reb score. The Rebs do get a reroll. The Union are pretty good. They're happy. They're on a 9. The Rebs will reroll their 2. They still get a 2. So that's a 9 against a 3. They've won by 6. The Rebs are whipped and they have to retire, and the Union troops can press on. Okay, so this is where we've ended up. We only rolled a 2 for the follow-on move for the Union. So the reserve brigade got 2 on the crest of the hill there, 2 on the crest of the hill here. And the right-hand flank of the Georgians' attack has been pushed back into the woods again. All right, let's do the charge here as the Union go into this veteran Texan brigade. I think it'll only be a partial volley, as most of the brigade is obscured by the regiment. Okay, as the Union troops have effectively got supports to the rear and supports to the flank, the Texans can fire, but they will have to allocate their hits, and we're going to allocate them 50-50 between the two units that are facing them. So the blue dice will be the Texans' fire dice for being a large regiment. So they get 2 extra casualties on the blue dice, and they've rolled a 7 at close range. So standard volley at close range is 7, so that's 4 casualties, so that's 2 on each of the attacking regiments. Okay, so that's 2 on the stationary regiment, that's now up to 11 casualties. We will just check that dispersal is not at 10. I'm pretty sure dispersal is at 11, so they're very much at the point of breaking. Standard regiment needs 12 casualties to disperse, so potentially the first Union regiment is about to break, but we've still got a charge. That was pretty good because 4 casualties, only 2 on the assaulting unit. So I think you only apply those 2 rather than all 4 in the charge calculation. But they've also all taken 4 cumulative casualties. So this will be a, let's see how many the Texans have taken, because they may have also taken, yeah, they've taken 5. So there's a net +1 multiplier here to the Confederates. Confederates get a 4. The Union get a 5. Both have supports. Okay, so the Rebs are going to roll their support. Wow, they're on to a 3, and that was a 5, wasn't it? So the Union will re-roll the 1 and get a 3 from their support. That's a win by 3. So on a win by 3, are they going to try and re-roll that 3? On a win by 3, the defenders are whipped. Okay, so they're going to take that. The Texans are going to have to pull back, and the Union troops will hold their ground. All right, let's move the Rebs. Front regiment takes D3 casualties. The front regiment takes 3, and the support will take 1 further casualty. Let's move the Texan brigades out. All right, charge is complete on this flank, and it's looking much better for the Union troops. So their reserve brigades come on. They've stabilised this right-hand flank against the Georgian attack, and they've thrown the Texans back behind the hill. So they're firmly in possession of the ridgeline, even if they do need to resort their formation somewhat. All right, that's it for charges. Let's do normal. Okay, let's start with an exchange of musketry. Union troops on the far left, far right hill, still fighting against the Georgian brigade. Let's see how they do. They roll an 8. That will be straightforward, no modifiers. That is 2 casualties and a C the elephant test on that Georgia regiment. They're up to 6 casualties now, but they roll an 8, so they are fine. No other firing from the Union troops on the left. Then on the Union right, we've got the Union skirmishers to fire against the Reb skirmishers. They cause 2 casualties. The Rebs up to 3, and their formed volley will fire against the skirmishers. This will be at a -2. They roll a 9, that goes down to a 7. That's pretty good. That's 2 more casualties on the Rebs here, taking them up to 5. So both of the Reb infantry regiments that have been doing so much damage are now worn down. All right, let's do the Reb return. So the Rebs starting on the left will do both regiments. They should have 5 bases. They both lose 1. For firing at the Union troops in behind defence line, and lose 1 for their cumulative casualties. They should have needed 6s unless they get within 9 inches. I think we will have. No, they were hesitant. They can't have moved forward, so no effect from that firing. And then 4 bases of infantry will fire at the guns. Again, needing 6s, they cause no casualties. The effectiveness of the Reb skirmishers on the right has been seriously whittled away. Okay, they need to advance closer, which they can do, hopefully, if they get initiative next turn. The Rebs will fire their skirmishers against the Union troops who did such a good counterattack against the Texans. They're at close range, they only need 5s. They cause 1 more casualty on the Union. And then we have the Reb volley from the unit on the hill. This will be at -1. They're on 11. That's pretty good. That goes down to a 10. That is 4 casualties and a see the elephant test on those Union troops that are in that musketry duel. Let's just go and check what their cumulative casualties. That was a fresh Union brigade, so this is see the elephant test at -1 simply. They're all a 9. They are fine. So that's where we are at turn 8. Oh, one other thing I hadn't mentioned as part of the movement. We do have the final rebel reserves. The Louisiana Brigade has arrived with the Louisiana Tigers and 2 more infantry regiments. Again, all veterans. Can they break this Union defence? That's where we are at turn 8. So looking at the outskirts of Howells Farm, Union troops still firmly in position. We do need to do 2 leadership tests actually to try and reform our skirmishing infantry there inside the farm. I'll go and do that. We'll do that now. I think though they might be at lines too. Let me just let's roll for their reforms again. Reds will be the unit on the right. Blues will be the one on the left. The left have got a -1. So the left roll a 7, so they stay in skirmish formation, and the ones on the right have a -2, so they also fail. So we failed to form up those 2 Union regiments. All right. So anyway, although we have failed to form up, the rebel forces are all in skirmish as well. So again, they will have to form up, fall back behind their formed units if they're going to attack. So the rebel advance, which is looking so good, given the number of casualties they'd caused on those 2 opening Union regiments, now stuttering a bit as they meet fresh Union troops. We might have to think again. In the centre, we are going to have to rely on our Louisiana Brigade, because when we look at the state of our Reb troops, not great. Our veteran Texans have suffered 8, 5, 1 and 1 casualties, so certainly we need to bring our rearised regiments forwards. For our Georgians here in the woods, we've suffered 6, 6, 2, 2 and 3 casualties again. We need to do a passage of lines. For the Union troops, the right-hand brigade includes this regiment on 4 casualties and these 2 back here on 4 and 7. So that one's pretty shook up, but clearly our reserve brigade not really committed yet, just did that 1 charge and undamaged. For our right-hand brigade, 4 casualties, 2 casualties, and most concerningly, 11 casualties on that right-hand regiment. Not much to cause that one to fall back, so I think we might have to do some significant orders to reshape the Union line, pull some of these damaged units back. All right, so it's all in the balance. 8 turns in. Let's see how this game goes as we move on to part 2.